Hello and welcome to Artist Express. Our guest today is Isaiah Marcotte, who lives here in Salina and is a videographer. Isaiah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your practice of videography and how that process is going for you right now?
Well, I think primarily, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I don't really quite identify myself as a videographer, more aligned to like an artist or filmmaker, if anything like that. I mean, videography is like part of what I do, obviously, so, you know. But I think when it comes to that, it's something that, it's more like a tool that I've used to express myself from a very young age.
Yes.
It's a medium that I picked up that I was like, oh, well, this is something that, you know, I can learn to tell like my little stories and everything. And so it's kind of grown much more since then, you know, into a just kind of a practice that has helped, I don't know, expand my creative skills or my learning abilities and everything like that. I don't know. It's been fun. So.
Actually, that answer anticipates one of my questions, because I have been very curious about whether there is a firm distinction between videographer and movie or filmmaker or whatever. And so what you're telling me is you're approaching this from a fine arts standpoint more than from, say, a documentary or record-keeping process.
Yeah, and I think that the line kind of blurs between them a little bit too, because I mean, a lot of documentaries are made that can really capture something of the soul, or more or less express an idea beyond itself, you know, in such a way that it's not limited to just strictly documentation. However, I do enjoy doing documentation things here and there, but it's not my primary, you know, goal.
I see.
I mean, it's really cool to be able to dig into different things. Like, for instance, just recently I filmed bits for this station, the George Floyd protest.
Yes.
So I wanted to be able to get that and show where Salina's stance on with that, excuse me, and wanted to, you know, show that it's an issue.
Yes.
And that this should be heard about and this should be seen, especially in the fashion that it was executed. So. Exactly.
And a documentary presentation is a more forthright way of illuminating an issue, I think. I mean, no one has to figure out the symbolism or anything like that. It's very straightforward. So that's probably a very good way to deal with that right now, so that misunderstandings don't happen, or lack of understanding doesn't happen, because things are clear.
Yeah. And I think that's what's really interesting, is that our newer generation with cell phones and really any camera that we have on us, it's a double-edged sword, because we're losing a great deal of privacy, but at the same time we are getting a lot of events from the actual event itself without having it being paved over with any sort of narration and major news broadcasts, or no particular bias geared towards it. If somebody's able to capture an exact event unbiasedly, how it executes out, then we have a better understanding of what's going on in the world.
Exactly.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, we do get a lot more information than we used to get.
Yeah.
And so,
overstimulating.
Developing, from the audience standpoint, our responsibility is to develop the ability to sift through the facts, the opinions, the extreme viewpoints, and figure out where the center is. So I think it's a valid way of expressing yourself, as you said, but also to shine light on things that need to be brought to people's attention.
And it's almost a democratic process too, because then, you know, to be able to have a majority perspective on something from various different points of view, that didn't quite make total sense, to have an overall sight of a situation by using different perspectives. You know, we're able to link our heads together a little bit better in that sense. And that's almost kind of what's happening with our day and age.
Yeah, it's the big picture.
Yeah.
all the time, almost.
Yeah.
Well, tell a little bit about how you decide on your jobs, you know, or a project. For instance, you said that you filmed for the station. So are you on staff with the station, or did they just call you as an independent artist, or?
Well, it's actually more like this. What I do is as I said before, I use filmmaking as a medium to express myself. So if I were to be really honest, it's more of a selfish pursuit. I like to go out and I have an idea, and I want to be able to see in what way I can express this idea in multiple different fashions. Now, to bring it back real fast to your question, with the George Floyd situation, it was more of a spontaneous endeavor.
I see.
And so I wanted to bring that into the idea that you brought up, that I do enjoy documenting certain sections and what's going on in the world, but which I think is important, and which I think is something that any filmmaker should have a tool belt on, is a sense of awareness with what's going on and not getting too terribly lost in their heads. But to bring this back around with a little bit more what I do personally is I go out and I try to explore different concepts and ideas through almost kind of an abstraction. And so this is why I want to be able to cut the line between the two, because I think that's important.
Right.
However, they can blend.
Yes.
I just think that's an important distinction to make between the two, because we don't want to be making social commentary in an abstract way and present it as the truth.
Right.
Because it can become misleading towards a biased perspective.
Yeah.
However, if it's deliberately presented as a particular perspective, as a way to stimulate one's mind about a subject through another lens, that's where art really comes into play, you know, or a certain trying to attempt to capture something that can't be captured from a strictly documentative sense. Right. So going back, excuse me, I don't want to be going in these rabbit holes.
No, this is what we do.
Okay. I consider myself and what I do at the moment, of course things change, as just, I suppose, just a visual filmmaker. I've never really sat down and figured that out. Yeah. I just kind of do it. But so you're asking me to define it, so I'm like, okay, so I pretty much just am a visual artist, is how I like to express that.
That's the best way, I think.
Through filmmaking, because I enjoy using multiple different mediums. I'm working on a very large project at the moment that involves a lot of mediums that I'm jumping. It's a multimedia project, and so I really enjoy exploring different perspectives. I enjoy exploring a similar idea, an abstract idea, through different perspectives, is what I should say. Like, through just as a run-of-the-mill example, I would shoot sometimes between digital, I should say, excuse me, and actual movie film.
Right.
So I would shoot on 16
So you
millimeter.
have equipment for both.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I enjoy, that's kind of the geek side of me. I really enjoy exploring a lot of these different cameras and all this different type of gear, because it's fun. And I was always fascinated by that when I was younger, because when I was younger, I was really fascinated by mechanics. So my dad's, you know, really good at that side on the trades. And so I kind of linked a little bit between there. But I was always fascinated in different mediums of this kind of stuff, and really fascinated by mechanics. And I enjoyed just kind of seeing it all run together. You know, like a movie projector running is just kind of romantically, you know, oh, it's so cool. You know, it's just running. And but I wanted to explore kind of this. As of recently, my goal is to kind of explore this kind of a metaphysical kind of realm to it. You know, how does this particular image created by this mechanical object present itself in the fashion through the familiarized aesthetic familiarity to it, so that people can identify with the feel of the image.
Yes.
But then what you're also communicating with that particular feel of the image could be analogous to what it's pointing towards.
Exactly.
So it's used to be back in the day, you know, that was just the only gear you had. And so filmmaking and the many different avenues that you explored had these different subjects presented, of course, through whatever film or whatever content it happened to be. And out of consequence of watching these films, you would have the physical interference or distortion.
Exactly.
And this particular thing was kind of, it just imprints itself on the actual content. And so this is something that a lot of my current generation is very fascinated with, because a lot of my current generation is very fascinated with this vintage gear. We have a lot of people still shooting on VHS to get this weird look, this funny look, and they'll just deliberately
weird and
distort
funny to them, but to us oldsters, not so much.
You know, it's
well, it's just the digital version of what you do is so much more immediate.
Yeah.
But there was such a process involved with genuine film that there was a lot of time to deliberate and choose and edit more, I think. And so I think that's a big difference. Can you talk a little bit about the training that you've had and how you mentioned your father and the mechanics contributed to your learning curve and so forth. What did you focus on in school that allowed you, this is going to be fun, I can tell, that allowed you to embark on this journey?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is, if I were to do school again, I would have focused more on my studies. I do think there's a great value in a lot of these things, but I also will add to that it really comes down to the student to learn out of school, you know, because that's really with anything, is you've got to want to know. And that's pretty much where I started. My sister actually filmed me and my brother. My older sister filmed me and my brother when we were younger, and filmed us playing around and stuff, and we made these little short sketches, you know, and then they just kept going. And then we would write we didn't write it, but, you know, we would come up on the spot.
Right.
Well, what happens next? You know, and we would make a little plot, you know, about something. And then I was like, well, I want to do that again, but nobody else wanted to. So I took the camera. And I just kept going. And
do you write before you film? Do you write or create an outline of what you plan to do? Or how does that process work for you? At the moment, I'm still learning. I mean, I'm 20 years old, so I'm still kind of creating what's that called? A process. Yes. I'm still creating a process for myself, and this recent project has been a way of me doing that without going to college for it at the moment. And when you talk about a multimedia project that this is going to be, are you collaborating with artists from other disciplines then? Can you talk a little bit about that? What other disciplines are you addressing? Dance, drama, visual arts. Are you pulling some other artists into your process? Yes. Okay. At this very moment, this particular project we're working on is involving a great deal of musicians. We actually do want to get a dancer in here pretty soon for this one sequence. So we're looking out for that, and somebody to help choreograph that. So far, nothing yet, but and painting, animation, like the traditional animation. Yes. And so musicians. What else? Sound design. You know, there's a lot of different things that go into film, but the particular film we're working on right now involves a great deal of many different heads that we're putting together on this, which I'm excited about, because I think that the broader span that you have on that, the better off you're going to have a more integrated project. Can we see your work somewhere in Salina right now or in the near future? You might have a YouTube page at the moment, and that's about it. It's called Marcotte Productions, and it's run together, so it's MARCOTTE Productions. And it's just no space. All right, and that's on YouTube. That's about it at the moment. All right. Well, this was a quick conversation, but it was delightful to talk with you. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you. And remember, you can find Isaiah's work at Marcotte Productions on YouTube.